we hadn't had a definition of what good looks like from a leader. There's fundamental building blocks that have to be in, and they have to be clean and up to date. And, we talk about data, again, the non-sexy stuff, but this is what you can, if you have your house in order, then you can continue to build and iterate. And then from an AI perspective, really capitalize on that and make the tailored experiences. But it has to be on sound information.
Sue, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
I like your glasses, by the way.
Thank you.
Nice. Like, are you like one of those glass wearers like my wife, where she's got like a whole set of basic glasses based on occasions? She's got like going out glasses, the work glasses. Like, there's a lot of glasses, basically. Is that a yes?
I do have that, and these are the computer glasses, so I can see the computer. So, yes, my optometrist loves me.
Oh yeah, when I grew up, like I used to wear glasses. You just had a pair of glasses, and then now, like my wife's got a pair of glasses for every occasion. But it's fair enough. It's just depending how you're feeling, you want to project a bit of energy into the situation. But before we jump in, Sue, tell everyone a little bit more about you personally and your journey to where we are now, and also a little bit about the company if people are not aware of the business.
Sure, absolutely. So a little bit about me personally. I am married with two young adults. I have a 27-year-old and a 25-year-old, and my oldest is getting married next year. So it's been an interesting, quick journey. I live in the United States, in New Jersey, and I've been here for a long time. I started off actually growing up on a very small family farm and was able to transition into professional life through a co-op program in college. And back then I had no idea what the corporate world looked like or felt like or what it required. And through that co-op program, it really started me on that journey. Started my career in finance and then really transitioned over into human capital over a number of years. But it wasn't planned. It was one of those things when life happens. My first daughter was born, and she was needed for me to stay home for many months until I could leave her. And it allowed me, I worked with a tremendous organization that allowed me to consult and then come back full time when I was able to. And the story began. So this journey has been an unusual one. And today I am at Dynatrace. I am their chief people officer, their first one. So this is a mid-sized organization in the tech space. We really focus on observability and really making sure that networks are running correctly and that they're safe. And so we work with lots of enterprises across the globe. We have about close to 5,000 resources, individuals working in the organization globally, many different countries. Most of our employees sit either in the US or in Austria. Those are our two largest bases. And we are high tech and a fast growing organization.
Wow.
And we'll be public 5 years in August.
Oh, amazing. Wow. I don't know where to take that all in now. that's a lot to take in. So what size, how many employees were the company at until they got a CPO? Because I suppose that's a interesting... When do you hire a CPO?
Yeah.
at the time.
So it was about 4,000.
Wow.
And so we continue to grow. So a little under 4,000 when I joined.
Amazing. Wow. And what attracted you to the role?
Well, the opportunity. To be fair, this is my third chief people officer role in a mid-sized organization. I love the global aspect of it. I love the space of technology, the high growth, and the ability to really bring together a international organization into a global team, that one company mindset. And so the cultural transformation, the opportunity to really reshape the employee experience. And so it's a wonderful ride, and I'll be there 2 years in July.
Amazing. And also the space you're operating in right now is just booming, right? Now more than ever. So how many more are you hiring right now? How aggressive are you hiring? What's the target at the moment?
Well, we are hiring. We are a public company, so we are definitely we are hiring. We're doubling down in our R&D area as well as our sales and sales engineering. So lots of momentum there to continue hiring. But we grew our headcount. We've been growing our headcount every year, our net headcount, and so we anticipate 10+% growth again this year.
Wow, incredible. So what's top of mind for you right now? What are you most passionate about? When we last spoke, I think I remember the employee experience was something that's really top of mind for you. And I always find that when I speak about employee experience, it means different things to different leaders. So why do you think this is so important, and what does employee experience mean to you?
So super important. I love this topic. And with regards to Dynatrace and even my other CPO roles, coming into an organization where when you attract key talent, and having that individual grow their career within the organization is golden, right? And how do you create an ecosystem in an organization where you attract talent, you retain and engage your talent, and you're in a high growth scenario, right? So it's being able to create that company where someone can come in and thrive, because we know that especially early career individuals are going to come into an organization, and then especially tech, they're looking to move on, right? So they want to be engaged and challenged by exciting technology and challenges, and you need to, as an organization, be able to provide the mechanism where someone can have that opportunity and that and experience. I would say that the Dynatrace experience is so unique because it is, a 19-year-old company. It's had a number of different ownership models, the latest being a public company. And you have pockets of employees that really have different types of employee experiences. And so coming into the organization to really create that one company mindset, to really bring that umbrella of why you should come to Dynatrace, why you should stay at Dynatrace, and then being able to provide that experience where individuals can grow, individuals know a career path and see a career path. And believe me, we are on that journey. It's a major radical transformation because walking into the organization, we are consistently inconsistent in our employee experience. And it is for all the right reasons, high growth, acquisitions, things like that. But now you're at a point where to scale to the next step and the next higher layer of growth, you have to have an infrastructure that provides a framework where individuals can really not have to think about, be distracted by finding out how to do their job, but to do it and to continue to grow.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Once you and the team have set this strategy, you're focusing on it. Can you walk us through how you approached it from a practical perspective? We all talk about employee experience. We all talk about the importance, but what are some of the practical, actionable things that you've done that you've seen that have had impact?
So absolutely multiple facets. It's many facets, right? So there's different areas that you're looking at this. The first and foremost is, and this is the non-sexy stuff, but it's essentially, do we have the systems? Do we have the information and the tools to be able to provide information to help influence decisions, right? So can we make it easy for our people leaders to really be able to lead their teams? Can we make it easy for our employees to get the information that they need at the time that they need it? And when you're walking into a consistently inconsistent employee experience, you're spending so much time recreating data or trying to find the answer. And if you're running a global team, you have to figure out all the different ways to how do I hire? How do I do, how do I onboard? And so the practicality is, how do we look at those tools and systems? How do we look at the approaches to the employee life cycle to say, okay, how do we recruit? I inherited 2 recruitment teams using different processes. How do we harmonize that for a global approach? So really looking at, how do we do performance enablement? How do we do compensation and streamlining that? So it's really looking at, okay, what are those key moments that matter onboarding, the attraction, the hiring, the onboarding, a life event, all of the things, a compensation conversation, being able to enable our people leaders to understand why it's important, how it gets done, and then being able to put the tools and systems in place to enable that. And there's a whole host of communications and change management that has to happen, but it's really a lot of blocking and tackling with the basics to build.
Yeah. No, well, thank you for being very comprehensive on that. And as you said, it's a culmination of different systems and tools that achieve that. At the moment, do you have a way, like, how do you capture, what tools and technology do you have that help you capture those moments that matter? What are some of the tools that you're using to be able to do that? Because there's been some big innovations in this space about, one, how we capture those moments, but two, how we communicate at scale based on local nuances, based on cultural nuances, based on the information that person needs when they need it at the time. Yep. So how are you approaching that?
So we're in the midst of a multi-year radical transformation. And so what we've just deployed is performance enablement. I'll take that as an example. And this is something where some parts of the organization had bits of it, but others, it was a huge gap. And so what we've been doing is working with an external partner to really look at, okay, a clear moment that matters is enabling the people leader to have a conversation about performance, about career development, because that's a key driver, especially in professional talent arenas where it's all about career growth and it's about development. And so what we've done is we're working with this partner to architect, okay, we decided that this is a key moment that mattered. How then do we focus on the conversations? What tools do we provide? And then how do we ensure that the approach we've put in really resonates with the business? And so there's been a lot of partnering with our leaders across the business on how can it work for, say, engineering? How can it work for, say, our post-sales, right? And I would say the time invested in making sure we understand how this needs to work for the business before you architect a tool and put out a solution, it works. And it really makes, you have to spend that upfront time of discussing and making sure you really understand how a business leader and how a people leader is going to use this. Yeah. And so I'll give you some stats. We just rolled this out to about 1,500 employees as a pilot. We had 99% of the people leaders fill out and really complete their evaluations. We had almost 98% of our employees participate in their self-evaluations. And now it's just really making sure it's a partnership.
Mm-hmm. All right, now you've just intrigued me. Who's the partner? You've intrigued me now.
We're working with Accenture to help us.
Okay. And in terms of the technology, though?
Technology, we're implementing SAP SuccessFactors.
Okay, and they're helping you build it basically what you just described as well. But they're helping, as an advisory, coming in, helping you with the strategy, the execution, implementation. Nice.
Well, and I think the thing is, too, that the lesson learned, it's a holistic approach. So when you have an implementation partner and you have a technology partner and you have the business and you have your people, and we call it people and culture function, there's a lot of moving parts, right? And it's very easy to have siloed thinking, especially when you're doing such a large transformation, just get this done. And what we've learned is you absolutely have to pull back and say, what's the experience? What's the holistic experience for the leader, for the individual participating in this approach? And when you don't do that, that's when you miss things, and that's when it doesn't go as smoothly as you would like. Yeah. So we've been really investing. I'll give you an example. When we were doing our performance calibration, my leader who runs talent development facilitated all of them. Now, it was close to 40 of them. But it's again having the dialogue of this is new to the organization. How do you train leaders to think about it differently, or to think about it because they haven't done it before?
Yeah.
And so I can't emphasize how much time you need to take to really work on the communication and making sure people understand, and making sure that when it is rolled out, it actually is utilized.
Yeah. What's the consequence of not doing that in your experience?
Well, you sometimes you have unintended consequences where you might send something out that just completely confuses the audience, or just really will not causes it such that people won't adopt it, and they won't actually partake in doing the process or the approach. So you have to be really mindful that this is a partnership all along. It's not, hey, here's something that HR deploys and you need to do it. That does not work.
No. Oh, I literally, my last podcast, we were talking about the same thing, is in bringing the business on the journey with you is 90% of the battle, because then after you deploy it, there's no sell needed. Because they've been part of the build, they've been part of the process, they understand what it means for them, their function, their organization, the value to the customer, and then you roll it out and everyone's on board. You have those champions that you have on board, right? That's what people think normally, and then the work begins. And then, to be honest, then the work actually begins. It doesn't end there. That's just the start of the journey. One of the big challenges I keep hearing, and you probably know this amongst your own personal network, and it's kind of like there's the same old story of like deciding which partner to go with. Like every leader I speak to, it's like a debate back and forth. It happens at every one of our events all the time. Why did you decide to go with SAP SuccessFactors? What, given your experience and the companies you've worked in the past, you've implemented multiple HMs in the past, why SAP SuccessFactors?
I mean, I think there's a combination of things. Number one, you're always going to look at the top ones, right? There's Workdays, there's Oracles, there's SAP, and we looked at them all. Right. And then part of it is during those conversations, you're also looking at, okay, how do we believe we can grow with this beyond just a HR system? Are there other aspects to this within finance or other areas of the organization? Can we continue to grow with this? And maybe the organization's not ready to do so, but where is that longevity, and how can it be expanded? And, so our decision was a bit on that as well. So functionality, a bit on, okay, is there other areas that we can expand into that we need to go to? And then also, a lot of times is, do you have a relationship already with that organization, from a commercial perspective? So you have to take in multiple factors. But first, you have to really look at all the different options to come up with, okay, which one could best fit for you.
And what was it, the things that stood out to you that you were like, okay, this is the right direction for us?
It was a combination of all three. It was a combination of, we are already partners as an organization, as organizations. We have the ability to expand in other functions. And then this is one of the top platforms out there.
Mm-hmm. So it also gives you the confidence that you're prepared for the future, as well. So I just wanted to ask that question because I think it's just a constant debate amongst our members.
Right.
It's just a constant debate. Yeah, it
is a constant debate, and again, you're looking at it from multiple facets. And the other thing is, you're not putting in a system for a year. This is a multi-year commitment that you're putting in. Yeah. And no system is perfect. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the other facets of it, you really then have an ability to make a decision.
Yeah, love that. Back to our point before about employee experience. I know as part of that, you're really passionate about, you mentioned obviously retention and engagement through connections, but tell me a little bit more about your thoughts in terms of how that then helps build community, because I think that's a really important part of that.
Yeah. So, look, for companies, definitely growth companies, fast growth companies, there's this, you're always looking for great talent. And not only are you always looking for great talent, you're also you want to make sure you retain the talent you have and you want to engage it, right? And you want that talent to grow at the pace of the company's growth, right? And so that's that kind of that balance. With regards to, we have a hybrid work model. close to 40% of our employees are remote. And especially during COVID, a lot of individuals came into organizations from a remote standpoint. That sense of belonging and making a connection with the organization is critical, because when someone feels that they are connected and they have a sense of belonging to the organization, changing and moving to another organization gets that more difficult. Right. And so I'm a big believer in when individuals connect and have a sense of belonging, they are going to engage more. They are going to be more open, and they're going to partner more across the organization. And this is critical in hybrid work environments, because some individuals never get to see other colleagues except through video. Right? They're not in a physical setting with individuals. And you've had that across distributed teams as well.
Definitely.
And so one of the first things, and I've done this in other organizations too, is come in and then really understand what's that employer brand. Like, what is the employer brand? Why do people come to the organization? Why do they stay? At, Real Vibes, Real People, that's our employer brand at Dynatrace. And we did this by really looking and doing research across the organization, saying what makes it work here. And this really resonated. But from that, you start to tell the story of the organization and really starting to make those connections and building community, either through remote clubs. So we have a remote connect club where we have our remote employees have social activities and learnings so that they're feeling a sense of community. We also have a number of ERGs, employee resource groups across the organization, again, building a sense of community. I'm doing a series of Real Talks podcasts, both used internally and externally, just to spotlight some key Dynatracers across the world.
Dynatracers, I love it.
May not. So we're also doing employee evangelist videos, which will be coming out later this year. It's really about how do we did put together a newsletter, global newsletter. I know that sounds old, but because everyone was very much wedded into their teams and they didn't really understand cross-function, cross-globe, we're really spotlighting all the different activities that really showcase the vibrancy of the organization. So all of that builds sense of community, but it's all through connections, and we all connect in different ways. And so the more you have through either ERGs or different subject clubs, this really helps individuals feel a sense of belonging to the organization, besides just their manager and just their team.
Yeah, beyond that, right? Because normally you would have that interaction if you was all in a workplace beyond your team. But when you work remotely, you're only confined to your team.
Exactly.
Right. And so how do you create that stickiness and that sense of belonging beyond the boundaries of just your own team as well? So I love the activities you're doing. And I think it's important. One, you've done a great job, which a lot of leaders don't do great, is you created a brand around it. Dynatraces. What was the saying you mentioned again? Real vibes, real people. I'm assuming there's some merch around.
We keep building on it.
You create a podcast, so it's a great authentic medium to connect with people. You got email. You're giving people choice, and they can consume the content however they want to. Some people might like to read an email. Some people might like to listen to a podcast. Some would like to join the ERGs. But that is kind of creating that. Those activities in themselves is what's then creating that culture, and that sense of belonging.
Absolutely. And then also refreshing our values and then defining those behaviors that really tell people how to show up under these values. We've just gone through that exercise and really simplified them. We only have 3, making sure we have a
Can you share those? What are the 3 values now?
So, win with integrity, engage with passion, win with integrity. Now you're putting me on the spot.
That's
win
right.
with integrity, engage with purpose, and innovate with passion.
There we go. See, all right. Whenever someone puts you on the spot, it's like, oh god.
I said them backwards too, but
no, that's fine.
It doesn't matter how you say them.
I don't think it matters what order. They all count, and it doesn't matter. And you mentioned what are some of those qualities that you mentioned that you want leaders and employees to show up with You mentioned that you revisited. Is that what you were saying? Sorry.
Yeah. So under our values, there's key behaviors, and
Behaviors.
so the behavior of when you engage with purpose, it's really
Mm-hmm.
listen to understand, and it's about feedback, and so each one of them is very much okay. Can I see this behavior demonstrated? And we've now baked this into our performance enhancement. So performance enablement has that. So when you're thinking about how an individual shows up to work and what they produce, you're looking at it through two different lenses. One is the work, but then the how factor, and the how factor is absolutely wrapped around the values. Does an individual live the Dynatrace values? And you can only see that through the behaviors they demonstrate.
And you're tracking that through the one-to-ones and the performance reviews and stuff like that. That's where
Correct.
you're collecting that information.
Correct.
And I'm sure that's kind of giving you and the team a good idea of your talent pipeline and potential future leaders, but also holding current leaders accountable as well, to make sure they're showing up in the right way for their teams.
Yes, absolutely. And you wanted to, the fun part about this is everything is connected, right? So real vibes, real people. Okay, our values, our behaviors, they all have to hang together. Otherwise, it just feels really disjointed. And so when you start to embed your values and your behaviors into each of the different aspects of the life cycle, so talent attraction to hiring to onboarding to performance enablement to career development, it all has to hang together. Otherwise, it's just, and that's the experience, right? That is the experience.
Yeah, you want to look at each of those stages of the employee experience or life cycle through that lens that you're describing. And now when you and the team sit down and look at each of those, you can kind of put those glasses on and look through and like, is this real vibes? What's it? I keep forgetting it now. Real lives, real vibes,
real people.
Real lives, real people, and making sure that is the lens that you're making decisions from. It's also a great foundation to look at things through, right? As well. I love that. And then that's the connectivity and the glue, right? That a lot of companies now are missing as we move to hybrid. I think we were missing it before, even when we was in the workplace, but I mean, it became even more challenging when we became distributed.
Right. And, one of the things we want to talk about, we want to play with is the real people too. So real vibes, you have a lot of different programs and you can see in office and also remote connect clubs and things like that. But when you think about real people, showcasing Dynatracers and really saying, okay, this is what, a Dynatracer looks like and reflecting. And you can really then, how does that reflect our diversity of culture, our diversity of thought, different perspectives. So you can take this and really, I would say, play off of it, but really build off of it throughout all the different aspects of an organization.
Yeah, I want a Real Vibes, Real People t-shirt.
I'll get you one.
When I meet you if I meet you at the event, then we're gonna get some Real Vibes, Real People.
We'll get you some swag.
I feel like HR leaders in general just need that t-shirt. Do you know what I mean? Like it's almost like his own HR brand that like the profession can have real vibes, real people. Anyways, how's this changed the way you and the team think and work? Because this is also a big shift within your own team about how you operate as opposed to conventional HR operating models or strategy. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. So I would say it's interesting. The traditional operating model, I mean, we do have an operating model. I would say the employee experience, or real vibes, real people, is the wrapper. But then I also have workplace experience as well as part of my function. So what we say internally and externally is how we reflect it internally in our facilities and also through our remote network. And so it is a complete wrapper around all of the experiences and that we support the organization with, and programs and initiatives. And so I would say it's a more holistic
Yeah.
way of thinking about this to say, hey, does this hang true for what we're saying? You know, we create a buzz in our facilities. So how are we creating that buzz? What programs are we doing? Does it tie to what we're saying with real vibes, real people, right? And so are we authentic? Are we welcoming? Are we ensuring that new Dynatracers coming into the organization really feel connected, really feel a sense of belonging, and just truing that up? It just helps you really, it's the guide rails, right? And it's to say, hey, are we living what we're saying we're living? And how do we, and our next evolution of this phase is putting in true employee value props for different personas. So that's what we're working on. We'll be rolling that out.
To make it an even more customized, bespoke employee experience. Because
so
you're
from
right.
a technologist,
Yes,
right? Or,
yeah.
you know, as a technologist or as a sales professional or as another professional, what does this mean to you? What's the relationship you can expect between yourself and the company? So we're in the process of fleshing them out, pulling together from the original research we did around real vibes, real people, and our values and our culture. So it really all speaks and hangs together.
Yeah. What would be cool is if you can also connect that with like the different stages people are in their career and how you then support them. So if you look, for example, from a comms and Ben's perspective, they're going to be looking at a very different set of benefits that they need at that particular age, whereas someone first coming into the business is going to be a very different. So also creating personas around, you don't want to pigeonhole people, obviously, but you don't want to send communication to them that just isn't relevant to them, to your point. You know,
right.
it needs to feel like, okay, this is aimed at Chris and what this means for me, and it helps me. And that is one of the incredible things around technology and AI is we can now tailor that at scale and create a unique employee experience for everyone. Whereas before it was just like a blanket statement that avoided all of that and even didn't even take into consideration cultural nuance, depending on if you have a global business, right? Or just in general, the neurodiversity of how people consume content and information as well. So it's really exciting that the how far we've come, right? That we are able to provide this to our employees and to our customers and to our communities.
Absolutely. And it's so, there's so many facets to this. So having that umbrella helps. And then when you think about the cultural differences, right? So having a global organization, how do you become a global team? That's the other thing, right? And so when you think about that community and bringing it across the organization, because we just did an engagement survey for the first time. Our highest ranked question was about, I feel like I'm part of a team. Great. But when you start thinking about, okay, a small team to a larger team, to a functional team, to multifunctional team, multi-geographies, we still have a journeys to work on that because, and when you have these umbrellas of an employer brand and employee value props, it just really helps provide a little more information of expectation setting. And your point about tailoring, our tailoring will probably start on learning and development because we know that career growth is the key driver. When you then think about different benefits depending on different life cycles of an employee, we're not there yet. I mean, we need to quite honestly sit back and really understand, okay, what do we currently offer globally? What can we offer globally? We currently offer an EIP that is global and provides a lot of mental health assistance, but that's our only real global benefit. Everything else is very much bespoke to the different countries we operate in. So we have a ways to still look at that, but right now our focus will be on the learning and development, the career conversations, the feedback, and making sure individuals really understand why and what they do fits into the company's overall mission, vision, and purpose, and how do their efforts really feed into the growth of the organization. And there's alignment because that drives connection too. And sometimes it's really hard. You can feel pretty disconnected if, I'm not a technologist, we're a technology company. How do I fit into that organization? What's my contribution to the organization to help it continue to grow? And being able to really shore up those questions is our first step before we then start to even tailor further.
Yeah. No, there's a lot. There's a lot of work ahead of everyone, right? As well. But I love the fact that you mentioned you're starting with the learning side. You've seen that comes up time after time as one of the most important factors. It's the reason I left my company after 10 years because I felt like I just wasn't growing, learning, development. And to your point, I also didn't understand my role in the company's success. And I was just super disengaged because I was like, okay, I'm great at doing sales. I'm making millions of pounds for business, but what's the why? Like what am I like? What is my role in more than just sales outside of that in the success and the future of the company? If you can connect those two things together and leading with purpose, a lot of companies are doing stuff like that now, connecting people's purpose to the business and then understanding and seeing huge results. Unilever is a company that's been doing this for many years. They put over 15,000 leaders through that training every single year to understand how to connect those two things together, to your point. Through their learning program. And then, as you said, the learning and development tools have come so far as well. We can create that customized learning experience now. And that's kind of where AI is coming into all these tools to be able to, based on where you are individually, to tailor it to you. We just couldn't do that before. It required heavy lift on L&D teams to create so much content, but we can now use that using large language models and AI and many other tools. We've just built the world's first AI co-pilot ourselves, and we can onboard a few thousand HR members of the team and create every single one of them their own custom learning pathway based on the skills they want to develop, and the AI will build it for them. Right? Being able to do that is just incredible, and people are much more likely to want to do it because they feel like it's for Chris. It's for me.
Absolutely.
It's for me.
That tailoring, yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think though, depending on where a company is in this cycle, I mean, when we talk about AI and there's different types of AI, but the reality is you have to have your fundamentals in place, right? Your data, your information, your artifacts that are going to be pulling this, especially if it's within the organization, right? And so, depending on the cycle of a company, is it in that formative stage? Is it a growth stage? Are they really trying to the definitions? I mean, look, when I joined the organization, talent review and succession planning was not. It was still in its nascency, right? So we hadn't had a definition of what good looks like from a leader, right? And so there's fundamental building blocks that have to be in, and they have to be clean and up to date. And, we talk about data, again, the non-sexy stuff, but this is what you can, if you have your house in order, then you can continue to build and iterate. And then from an AI perspective, really capitalize on that and make someone's, the tailored experiences, but it has to be on sound information.
You're right. Otherwise, it's like garbage in, garbage out, right? Like
exactly.
Any director or any VP of people analytics that I speak to on a daily basis, even though we've got all these flashy tools and all these amazing, they're like, the first thing they sell me, they start with, when I'm like, how do you start? They're like, data. Get your data right, understand it, make sure it's clean, make it compliant, all of that stuff. And I'm like, oh, right. So all these sexy things we were talking about, it's like, no, ignore all of the shiny things, focus on that, because otherwise you're going to get it's just going to be garbage in, garbage out otherwise.
100%. And trust me, I like all the sexy stuff, but it's the basics that you have to have, right? And and definitions, my goodness, especially in companies that are growing up through acquisition, everyone defines different things in different ways or same thing in different ways, and you're just like, wait, you have to check that and have that confidence that what you're going to build off of is truly something you can build off of.
Yeah. When people, I heard this when I was maybe like 17. I never went to school. I think I told you before, I started work at like 16, 17. I just turned 17. I went to this business conference because I just wanted to understand what businesses, and just like, I mean, it was like a B2B expo, and I just went because I live locally, and I saw a guy speak on stage, and he's a billionaire of big tech company, and someone asked him, what got you to where you are? And I've lived by this statement ever since, and it's the success for HR leaders. And he just said, I do this, we do the basics to a higher standard consistently.
Yep.
And people are like, what do you mean? He's like, nope, nothing else. We do the basics to a higher standard. Because he said it, constantly said it, and I've literally, it's ingrained in my, whenever I sit there to the team and I'm like, are we doing the basics? Are we doing them to a high standard? And are we consistent? And if you can do that and constantly improve 1%, even if it's 1% a year, and you constantly are growing and doing it, that's where success comes. Yep. And if you look at those successful people, they've become very successful at one specific thing, and they've made sure there's a solid foundation. They're doing the basics to a high standard, and also I'll add on top of that, at the end, you just got to constantly be innovating. And so if you do that successfully, and that's all we've done. We've done the same thing at HR Leaders for the last 8 years, but every year we just constantly improved it. But we've got that solid foundation, and we just keep adding and adding and adding. The quality goes up. The different type of products we creating more customer delight amongst our members, providing more value, looking at new opportunities to deliver content through AI, and that's it. We just keep building that way. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask this question because I think I don't ask it enough. What would you say is the biggest challenge you've ever faced in your career as a CPO?
I think a biggest challenge as a CPO is the many hats that a CPO wears, right? So from a CPO's perspective, you are the face to, a lot of times you are the face and the voice of the employees. But then you also are a business leader that needs to build infrastructure, scalable infrastructure, put in the programs, the processes, the data, all of that, the metrics, enabling people leaders and employees for growth. So you're always kind of balancing the business and the employee side, right? And I think when you're going, especially through cultural changes and large transformations, it's hard sometimes, because if you say one thing, hey, we are employee centric, it is all about the experience, but then you have to make some really difficult business decisions. Say if you have to eliminate a role or change a program and potentially minimize it, not continue to grow it. People are always just saying, well, you can't be employee centric and do this. Well, and so it's that balance of trying to progress the organization from a human capital perspective, and yet also have that employee lens and I guess regard that you are doing this in a way that is positive for all, right? And that's a hard one, because sometimes you do have to make very difficult decisions or support very difficult changes in an organization that not everyone's going to agree with. Yeah. And you're not going to make everyone happy. And sometimes everyone's like, oh, well, that's what you do. You make everyone happy and you're all about the employee. And it's just like, well, wait a minute, there's also a business to run too. And how do you balance the different, the different agendas? And that can feed throughout the entire employee experience.
Yeah, it's like a paradox, being pulled. How do you deal with that on a personal level? Because that's not easy, right? Because it can be pretty lonely sometimes.
It is very lonely because you have to be, because you're, as a leader, especially a CPO, I mean, people are watching and listening to what you say, your body positioning, your body language, and you do want to have that positive, but also practical approach. And, sometimes, you just have to always try to remain calm and also understand where that person's coming from or those comments, because it's too easy to get into, especially these days, into the emotional, I guess, spin ups that happen on, divisive or challenging discussions that happen in the workplace. And you're always like, well, what the way to stay balanced is to stay calm and always ask the questions of truly understanding where an individual or a team or a leader is coming from to hopefully work through a solution to move forward. Because at the end of the day, we're all in organizations. We need to move forward. We need to work together. And you really want to be making the best decisions. And I think that's really hard because emotions, we're all emotional. We're human beings. We're emotional, and we might hear something or half hear something, and people run off in different directions. And it's like, that's all very distracting to a business. And how many times are CPOs involved into these, conversations where it's like, well, wait a minute, let's just pull back and understand truly what's at play here and what is the solution forward.
Yeah. I can imagine that sometimes can be overwhelming. Like, what kind of mechanisms have you put in place over the years to help you decompress when you're feeling like that?
Well, I have two things. I would say every morning I do meditate. And not every morning. I wish I could do every morning. I do have a Peloton that I love. So you just put your AirPods in, you blast the music, and you go.
Love it.
So that to me is like, those are kind of my two things. It's the meditation in the morning to start the day off in a good spot. And then it's if I can get on the bike, I love it.
Yeah. So in the morning, it's a double decompression. Like in the morning, you're meditating, and then in the evening, you're kind of getting rid of all of the stress of the day with the Peloton.
Well, actually, I do the Peloton in the morning and the meditation in the morning. By the end of the day, I'm just
do both. Okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go to bed.
Oh, that's fair then. So you deserve it after that. If you've done both in the morning, actually, that's a good way. It's a good way to set you up. Doing that in the morning is an incredible way to set yourself up for success to start the day.
Well, I think 9 out of 10 times, if you don't do it in the morning, it's not happening at the end of the day.
That's me.
Your day just keeps going.
I always say I'm going to do that, and my wife's like, no, you're not. And I get home, and I'm like, I can't bother. It happens every single time.
It's so true. It's so true. I do not have the discipline to exercise after the day.
Yeah.
And especially in our roles, oh my goodness, like things happen. Like every day, sometime my new saying is every day is a new box of chocolates. It's like, what's going to happen today? And, for your best laid plans of what you need to get done, you only have so many minutes in the day to do it. So start the day off right. It'll feel much better.
Yeah. Oh, well, listen, I didn't expect us to go down that route at the end there, Sue, but I'm glad I asked that question because I feel like it's important. These are the things that we don't talk about enough in the HR space. As well, and that the sort of the navigating the paradox that you just described of being pulled in two different directions is tough, and I think many leaders I speak to learn that the hard way when they get into those roles. They're not really prepared, if that makes sense, for all that. So it's great to shed the light on that as well, and also it's important that we also take care of ourselves, and I know that HR has not got a good track record of actually taking care of themselves, from my experience, from speaking to leaders. So we all know about the sort of put your own oxygen mask on first analogy. So we need to get better at that. But I appreciate you coming on the show. I know we'll have to check in again in a year's time because you got a lot ahead of you, right? You got some really cool projects, a lot of work that you're doing, and you're just getting started. But I appreciate you taking the time to share your experience with everyone. And I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on the show. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. See you later.
Bye-bye.